Does the wheelbase of your skateboard really matter? Yes it does. And lately I've been finding how important the wheelbase actually is to your skateboard and your overall performance and comfort on your board. For those of you that don't know, a skateboard's wheelbase is the distance between the bottom bolts of your front truck and the top bolts of your bottom truck. And that's measured from the center of that hole to the center of that hole. And that is the wheelbase of your skateboard. The most common wheelbases that you'll see on most boards range from 14 inches to 15 inches. I'll get into the benefits of having a short or a long wheelbase later, but basically the shorter your wheelbase is, the sharper you're going to be able to turn and the faster that your tail is going to hit when you're popping. And the longer your wheelbase is, the more stable your board's going to feel, the wider your turning circle is going to be, and there's more potential to pop higher, since as your tail's touching the ground when you pop, your board has to be at a more vertical angle when your tail does hit. The wheelbase of your board can definitely be increased or decreased depending on which trucks you're riding as well, which I won't get into too much in this video because there's so many variables involved. But for example, the axle of a Thunder truck sits further to the outside of the base plate, which is going to increase your overall wheelbase on your board. But the axle on an independent truck sits closer to the bottom of the base plate, which is going to decrease the overall wheelbase of your board. So if the wheelbase on your current board feels too small, you can chuck some Thunders on it to slightly increase that wheelbase. Or if the wheelbase on your current board is feeling too big, then you can chuck some Independents on there to decrease it slightly. And the difference between riding Thunders and independent trucks can sometimes vary between half an inch with your wheelbase. So it's definitely something to consider if your wheelbase is important and you're trying to sit around a certain number. Now, as most of you guys know, I've been riding Heroin egg boards for the last almost 10 months now, and I absolutely love those boards. But there is still one problem, and only one problem, that I'm dealing with these boards, and that is that all of the Heroin egg boards come with a shorter wheelbase. My favorite Heroin board used to be the 9.5 inch Razor Egg, and that had a 14.25 inch wheelbase, which is quite small for me and someone my size. And that board eventually just started feeling too short and too squirrely because the wheelbase was too short for me, especially when I started jumping down bigger stairs and handrails again. I tried to fix this problem by stepping up to the 9.75 inch egg board, but it still had the same 14.25 inch wheelbase and the same length as well. But somehow just extending my width about a quarter inch made the board a little more stable for me, and I've been loving that board, and I've ridden that 9.75 for the last 2 boards that I've had now. But I've still always been on the lookout for an egg board that is symmetrical and has a wheelbase of about 15 inches, which doesn't exist in Heroin's lineup. But the board I used to ride before stepping up to these egg boards was the Antihero 9-inch Eagle board, which had a length of 33 inches and the wheelbase was 15 inches long, which is pretty long, but it felt so good to me. And out of all the years that I've been skating, that board and those dimensions have been the most perfect and most comfortable that I've ever ridden. A lot of you guys might be wondering, and a lot of you have asked me why I don't just go back down to that size board if it was so comfortable and I loved it so much. But I've been riding these egg boards for the last 10 months now. I absolutely love them, the shape of them and the width. I'm riding nothing smaller than a 9.5 inch wide these days. So sadly, that 9-inch board is just too small for me now. The width anyway. Now, I've recently come across one of Professor Schmidt's Instagram posts from last year talking about the boards that he's been creating for Cordano Russell or Cordano Russell. I don't exactly know how to pronounce his name, but he basically says Cordano, I really don't know how to say that. I'm gonna say Cordano. Cordano rides a board that is an 8.75 inch wide with a 15 inch wheelbase, 7 inch nose, 6.75 inch tail. We've kept that constant from the start and have focused on the thickness and combination of stiffness and flex to meet his needs. His board is scaled in proportion to his height, since he's 6 foot 4 inches tall, which is crazy, and goes on to say if you're over 6 foot tall, you really should be riding a 15 inch wheelbase so your body can be comfortable on your board. If you're riding a board that's short, your nose is wheeling? I don't know what that means. Your nose wheeling when you're not planning it? I don't know what he means to say there, but he also says, and your knees can knock when you land a trick, and that is hard to counteract. Now, this post is so relevant to me since I'm over 6 foot tall as well, and I've been riding boards that have a wheelbase of 14.25 inches wide. There's no wonder I've been feeling like these boards are too short for me, and I've been a bit too squirrely and uncomfortable on them, since I should be riding something with a 15 inch wheelbase, like the great Professor said. And that makes so much more sense now why I actually love that 9-inch Antihero board so much, because of the 15 inch wheelbase and why it felt so natural and comfortable to me. Now, I know this isn't an egg board and it's not a symmetrical board or anywhere close to that, but I've picked up one of the Antihero Green Giant decks. This is 9.56 inches wide, 33 inches long, but the wheelbase is 15.25 inches wide, which is the longest I've ever heard of, and and definitely the longest I've ever ridden before. I've never ridden anything with such a long wheelbase before, but I wanted to pick this one up to see the difference between the 9.75 heroin board I'm riding right now with the 14.25 inch wheelbase and this 9.56 inch wide board with the 15.25 inch wheelbase. So it's almost a 1/4 inch thinner than the board I'm riding now, but the wheelbase is a full 1 inch longer. It might take a little while for me to get used to this shape because it's got more of a square tail and a pointier nose than I'm used to, but that 15.25 inch wheelbase here should feel so comfortable and so natural to me. And I'm actually pretty excited to test this board out today. This has already been quite a long intro, so I'm going to set this board up right now, head out to Waterloo Skate Park to test this thing out. I'll give you guys my first impressions, how the shape feels, and if the longer wheelbase is helping me in any way, but it's 1 inch longer, so surely it's going to feel more comfortable to me. And then I'll get into the benefits of both a shorter wheelbase and a longer wheelbase so you guys can try and figure out which one would benefit your skating the most. So let's go. So the benefits of having a shorter wheelbase, like I already said, your tail is going to hit the ground a lot sooner when you're popping your ollie. So you're gonna get a faster snap and it's gonna make your kicks feel like they're a lot more shallow. Since the wheelbase is shorter, your lever is shorter, so it's gonna snap a lot quicker when you're popping. This is also gonna make the front of your board feel lighter as well. So it's gonna feel like you have less effort when you're popping your tail. But this just means you're gonna be able to pop faster and more effortlessly. It doesn't mean you're gonna be able to jump higher. And like I said, you're gonna be able to turn sharper because your wheelbase is closer. You're going to be able to have tighter turns. Now with a longer wheelbase, because your chucks are further apart, it's going to take your tail a lot longer to pop. Your board's going to have to be a lot more vertical when you're popping, but this gives you the potential to pop and jump higher because your board is at a higher angle when you're popping, which sometimes can mess up your flip tricks. Because the board has to be so angled when you're popping, sometimes the timing of your flip tricks can be a little off. So that's something you have to play with too. But the longer wheelbase is going to give you a more wider turning circle. You won't be able to turn as sharply. So it depends what type of skating you want to do and how you want your board to perform. That will depend on if you want a shorter wheelbase or a longer wheelbase. But now the skate park's slowly starting to dry up a little bit, I'm going to try and skate the rest of the park a little bit more, get the feel for this board a little bit more. Then I'll go over the main considerations you guys want to make when you're deciding which wheelbase you want, especially depending on your size and your weight. Alright, board feels good and comfortable, but I've noticed a lot of things already. First of all, the board feels flatter than the heroin boards. I don't think it's actually a flatter concave board, but the heroin eggs have the razor top on the side, so it feels like there's more concave because it's sharper on top. So this board feels a little flatter. Second thing, it feels heavier. It's a 9.56. The heroin boards I was just riding was a 9.75. So this board is thinner, but because it's longer and the wheelbase is longer, like I said, the front of my board feels heavier when I'm popping. Also, because it has to be at a higher angle before I pop, the board definitely feels heavier, so I'm getting used to the timing of my pop. But the length feels good. It just feels like I'm able to stand with my legs further apart and feel comfortable. I don't feel like my feet are like too close together, which is the whole point of getting this board. So it's feeling good so far, but I've got a lot more skating I need to do on it. flip's better. I just struggled so hard with all of those flip tricks on this board. All the tricks that I did regular, popping off the tail, felt good. This longer wheelbase and delayed pop helped my kickflips a lot because I'm usually popping and I'm flicking my kickflips too quick. Like I've already flicked off before I've even popped properly, so I suck at kickflips. But maybe a longer wheelbase helps my kickflips because they did feel good just then. But when it comes to the nollie tricks, I just couldn't figure out the timing of popping the nose onto the ground. I think I'm used to the egg boards too much. I'm obviously used to those too much, but they pop really quick because it's a short wheelbase. And it's a symmetrical board, so the kicks are smaller, but it pops really quick. This time I was popping where I thought it would be, but my board needed to be a bit more vertical. So that nollie flip took so long, and the one I landed, I wasn't even that happy with. I was just gonna take it. It was decent enough. Nollie heel was a little bit easier for some reason, but I usually like pop really hard and push my front foot forward on nollie heels. But nollie flips is one of my easiest flip tricks, so I'm so surprised that it took me that long, but it was just the timing of this nose. It had to be more vertical for it to pop and flip properly. So they were a struggle, but when it came to the tray flips, I was worried because of how square this is, but put the ball of my foot on that corner there and I got it second try, but I actually ended up landing a very good tray flip that I was happy with, and then backed it up with the nollie tray, which I didn't think would work that well either because of everything I just talked about with the nose timing, but I was able to pop it and catch it pretty well. So tray flips worked really well on this, which surprised me. But everything else nollie and switch was like super hard, especially the switch heel. As I was popping, it was getting higher because of the delayed pop, but it was shooting forward because it wants to pop up and forward. So switch heels popped really well, but that was hard to get used to as well. So if I want to keep riding this board or boards with longer wheelbases like this, I'm really gonna have to get used to the timing of my flip tricks better, which isn't too much of a big deal because I'm not doing a lot of flip tricks these days anyway. But for everything else, this board felt really comfortable skating the ledges and rails and everything. So I'm gonna go skate the flat bar, try and do some nollie and switch type of slides just to get used to this kick more. Then maybe skate the 3-stair and the 6-stair because I want to get used to a bigger wheelbase jumping down bigger things. Then I'll talk about what you should be considering when it comes to whether you want a shorter wheelbase or a longer wheelbase. That'll do. Wow, that's perfect. unintentionally split this video into two separate topics. So for you guys that care about the board I was riding today, I'll talk about that before getting into the wheelbase considerations. So there were three main things I realized skating this board, going from a 14.25 inch wheelbase to a 15.25 inch wheelbase. First of all, the board felt heavier to skate, which it wasn't because it's a 9.56. I've just come from riding a 9.75, so I'm used to a wider board. But this one felt heavier to skate because since the wheelbase is longer, the front of the board is further away. So as I'm popping, the front of the board feels heavier. Also, having to have the board at a higher angle before it pops because of the longer wheelbase, it took more effort to press down on the tail to get to the floor to pop up as well. So the board overall felt heavier just to pop and skate in general. Didn't feel bad, but it definitely felt heavier. Second thing I realized was how different the timing is on this board. Because of what I just said, having to pop later, my flip trick timing had to be different as well. It's not like I just went up to from a 14.25 to a 14.5. I went up a whole inch on my wheelbase and it was really noticeable. So the timing of my flip tricks were completely off. Kick flips had to get used to, heel flips, nollie flips, switch heels, nollie heels, everything I had to get used to, especially the nollies. The nollie flip timing was just crazy to me. Nollie flips are one of my most consistent and comfortable tricks, and it took me so long just to get a half decent one. I was getting so annoyed. So I've got a lot of work to do figuring out the timing of the nollies still. But the trick that actually felt easier was the tray flip. I thought I'd have more trouble because it's longer. The wheelbase is longer. I didn't think it would flip and scoop as well because I'm a big scooper on my tray flips. I can't really pop it. Like obviously I'll pop it, but I rely on the scoop a lot more than I do with the pop. So figuring out the foot position on the tip of the corner didn't take that long to figure out. It only took me 2 tries to land the tray flip. But I don't know if you guys have ever been able to tell, but when I tray flip, I stand with my feet really close together. Like it's super awkward, but that's just how I do it. And I can't really tray flip up or down or across anything because riding with my feet almost together is impossible and I always lose my balance. But because I was skating a board that was much longer and the wheelbase was longer, I could move my feet up a little bit and it worked just as well. I don't really know how to explain this properly, but I didn't have to have my feet so close together. I could have them a little wider and stand a bit more comfortably to do the tray flip. So I'm still not quite sure why that worked so well because the wheelbase was longer, it was a square tail. I've always relied on the egg boards to help whip and make my tray flips work easy. And somehow they were still working easy and feeling really good on this board. So flip trick timing was completely different to what I was used to. And the third thing I found was taking impact down the 6 stairs felt so much better when I could stand further apart. So it's only a 6 stair, it's not that big, but I'm almost 100 kilos, so I feel every bit of impact from that 6 stair. So ollieing the stairs, skating the hubba and the rail, just coming off of the end of the rail or the hubba, that's a lot of impact for me. So being able to take that impact with my feet further apart on the board because the wheelbase was longer, I was able to use more of my hips, my knees and my ankles to compress and take that impact. On the heroin boards or any board that has a shorter wheelbase, my feet have to be closer together. So as I'm taking the impact, I can't exactly take all the pressure on my knees because they point in towards each other because I'm standing too close together. So having a wider board I could stand further apart on, I could take that impact evenly through all of my joints, so it felt a lot more comfortable to do that on this board. So I'm getting worried about finding all of these benefits of riding this board and why I should be riding a wider wheelbase board because I'm really loving those egg boards. I don't know if I want to give them up, and I also don't know if I want to skate a shape like this all the time for my daily board. It was fun and it was comfortable, but I've still got a few more sessions to have on it before I feel completely comfortable on it. I have after all been riding egg boards for 8 months. So I really do like the board. There was a few different changes that I had to get used to, but I'm not quite sure if I'm going to continue that direction riding boards like that, but I definitely need to keep riding boards with a wider wheelbase. So the main considerations you're going to have to make choosing whether or not you want a shorter or a longer wheelbase board is going to be the type of skateboarding you do and how you want your board to perform. Your height and your weight is going to play a big factor as well, but it's also going to come down to your comfort on your board and your personal preference as well. So take into consideration how tall you are, how heavy you are, how long your legs are, if you need to be standing close together, if you need to be standing further apart like I do, whether you want your board to pop and snap really quick or you prefer a delayed pop where you want to have the most potential to jump higher, whether you're going to be skating transition and taking big impact where you want your feet to be spread out further apart so you're more comfortable, if you're skating more technical and doing a lot of flip tricks and combos where you want your board to be shorter, your wheelbase to be shorter, where the board's going to pop, flip and rotate quicker. But at the end of the day, it's basically what is going to be most comfortable for you. But there are definitely a few considerations you need to decide on, and I'm finding out how important it is to have the right wheelbase to how comfortable you're going to be on your board and to perform properly on your board as well. So this was a bit of a heavy talking video. I appreciate if you've stuck around this whole time. Might have been a bit of a mess trying to overlap talking about the board and then the wheelbase as well, but I hope you guys did get something out of this video and you understand wheelbase a bit better now, and you have the information to try and decide what's going to benefit you most, a shorter wheelbase or a longer wheelbase. Let me know whether you prefer the shorter or the longer wheelbase in the comments below, but I'm finding out I'm definitely more suited to a longer wheelbase. So I'm going to have to find some egg boards with a longer wheelbase. Thanks to all you guys that have been suggesting all those boards too. There's a lot of good egg boards that I've found out there with a longer wheelbase thanks to all you guys commenting. So keep on commenting so I can keep finding new boards that I can ride because I'm loving trying different things. Check out the 9.75 heroin egg board video I did here where I was trying to rectify my problem with a shorter wheelbase, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.